This program is brought to you by Emory University.
This presentation, or some version of an earlier version, has been given at Oxford College on Wednesday night, where we actually launched the India Summit with a session from Future Group. Some of the slides have been changed, but for the most part, the message is similar, and it's fascinating information, and it's really where retail is going in the next decade. A very different contrast, very different perspective from what we've just seen on the technology. We have with us the founder, the co-founder of Future Group, Sunil Biyani, the director now of Future Group. Future Group is one of the largest and could become eventually the largest retail company in India. Previously, it was called Manswear Private Limited and now is Pantaloon Retail. And following his operation following his involvement in nearly every operation in the company, Biyani, that is Sunil Biyani, began the real estate division in 2008. He's on the board of the Confederation of Indian Industry and the Retail Association of India. I also want to welcome Rakesh Biyani, and Rakesh is the joint managing director of Pantaloon Retail Limited and has 20 years of association with the company. He's helped transform it into one of the leading retailers in the country. And as joint managing director, he leads management and expansion of the company's flagships, including Pantaloons, Central, Big Bazaar, and Food Bazaar. And he's also involved in category management, retail store operations, and information technology. In 2012, he was honored with the Retail Personality of the Year Award, which is given by the India Retail Forum to an individual for their extraordinary contributions to the industry. And finally, we have Devendra Chawla, who's president of Food and FMCG, and Food Bazaar and the Future Group. He joined the Future Group in 2009 as the business head of private brands. Previously, he served as regional manager for Asian Paints in Mumbai and director of area operations for Coca-Cola, where he also served as a general manager and director of route to market. You may be familiar with some of his writings if you're reading the press in India. He's often offering consumer insights and business insights for articles published in the Economic Times, Business Standard, Hindustan Times. And in 2012, he was honored with the Most Admired Food and Grocery Retail Professional of the Year. So with that, we'll begin.
Thanks, Holli. Am I audible? So I'll just speak from here. Thanks, Holli. Thanks a lot. So what we'll do, we put up a small piece of presentation. I'm sure over the last, from yesterday and now, you've heard a lot about India. So we had put up a piece of what the transition in India is going through before we come up to our own retail business. Because what we do has a lot to do with the understanding what India is going through. So this is a small piece. I'll go through it a little faster because I'm sure you guys have been through a lot in the last 1.5 days. Then we'll come to the retail business. In the last half an hour, we've kept for a Q&A where you could ask the panel any questions on India or on retail. So one of the still largely untapped market in the world. We believe in India the story just started over the last 1 decade, and clearly for the next 20-30 years, large growths are yet to be seen in the country. A $1 trillion economy. This average growth of 8 to 9% is over the last 10 years, but over the last 2-3 years, the growths have come down. They'll be more like 6%. Lesser, there's a concern in India over that, but still by world standards, pretty good. We have a very young population. We have 1,200 million people in India, and 60% of those are below the age of 30. So a very young population which is entering into the job market, being entrepreneurs. And these are the people who are forming the major or tomorrow's consuming class. The current opportunity is $445 billion. And what is fascinating is that even though it's one country, it's actually not like one country. We have 28 states, 8 major religions, and that's major. We have many more. 6,000 castes, 72 major festivals, and if I go into the minor festival, there'll be like hundreds and hundreds of them. And let me surprise you. Any guesses? And I'm sure somebody from India would know. How many gods and goddesses do we have in India whom we worship? Any guess? 15? How do you know that? Great, that's the right answer. So 3 million, excellent. So we actually have 3 million gods and goddesses. Yeah. So I don't think any one of us would know more than 50 or 100, but yeah, that's the way we are. We have all the major corporations coming into India recently. But what you'll realize that you need to Indianize, and the business model which would work in the US or in the West or in Europe just won't work in India. And many, many companies, most of them, I won't say all, but most of them have stumbled, and it takes them a couple of years. And while it is true that in any country in the world you need to understand the consumers, the local consumers, I guess in India it's a little more complex. So McDonald's burgers sell in India for around 50 cents. 65-70% of the population is vegetarian. So Pizza Hut has a vegetarian-only restaurants in India. And the paneer, which is the cottage cheese burger and pizza, are actually the most hot sellers. MTV, which is known for beaming English music, 90% of the program is in the local language, Hindi. And that's like Bollywood, the Indian movies. I'm sure everybody knows Nestle. It's a large company, more known as a dairy company, cheese. In India, the biggest selling product is not a dairy, it's noodles called Maggi. It's now roughly a $300 million turnover brand. Only this one item, one product, what we call one SKU. And typically it sells for 10 rupees, which is like 20 cents. One peculiar thing about the country is that while we modernize and while we accept the new, we really don't give up the old. So the new does not make way for the old. The new gets added to the old. I mean, that's something very peculiar to our country. People are not going to give up what has come through the past of thousands of years. We have a very rich history, a very rich legacy. And today also consumers believe in it, they hold on to it while adding to the modern. And as India globalizes, you're going to see the best of both, or the both at least. And that's clearly what's emerging as we see. You'll find what used to exist 1,000 years back still exists. People have the same belief, they live the same way, some part of the population, while they'll have access to the most latest technology. You'll find the same in fashion. Many of our hotel 5 stars, while they'll be very modern, they'll still be built on the architecture which used to be there a couple of 100 years back. And so does it go for Bollywood. And Bollywood is the equivalent of Hollywood in our country. And we produce three times more movies than Hollywood does.
Okay.
And of course, the youth. So what we mean, everything is converging in India. And I'll just leave you with 2 more examples of how we don't leave the old and we still accept the new. In India, it's not very uncommon, even in the large cities, even today, to find that if you take transportation, the oldest means of transportation probably was the bullock cart or the hand cart. It still exists. So you'll find in many cities a bullock cart going on the same road, and you'll have a Mercedes also going next to it, and you'll have cities like Kolkata, which is in East India, you still have the hand cart, so somebody pulling goods with a hand cart, and then there would be a rickshaw, which is like a tricycle, and then there'll be a Mercedes, and there could be a Rolls Royce. So everything coexists, and that's the beauty of India, that one does not have to be at the cost of the other. Everything can coexist, and nobody has a problem. I remember even today, once in a while, when I go to Delhi, it is rare, but still you can see there'll be a cow sitting in the middle of the road, and absolutely everybody is fine with it. Nobody's it's not a problem. Cow is also like a mother in the sense, it's like one of the goddesses. So people worship cow in India. So beef does not sell in India. It does, very few, much lesser. You'll find a car going, and if there's a cow standing in the middle of the road, people will drive around it because it's absolutely okay. It's absolutely okay. And if I have to give you a consumer products example, you know, in India there's a tree called neem. It is supposed to have medicinal value, and even today, 45-50% of India does not use a toothbrush or a toothpaste. So even though you have every company of the world in India, Colgate, Sensodyne, you name them, P&G, a lot of people still use the datun, which is like it's like a small broken branch of a tree called neem. And neem is supposed to have a lot of medicinal herbal properties. So that still exists in India, and then the toothpaste came, and then the gels came, and then the mouth freshener came, everything coexist. So in my family, my grandpa would never give up the datun. He would only believe in it. My dad grew up on a white toothpaste, the dental toothpaste. I grew up on a gel, and my kids have all pink, blue, they name it, all the colors. And in the same family, in the same household, everything coexists. And it's absolutely fine. One would not feel awkward, or it's absolutely fine. That's the way we are. Everything is converging. We have a lot of rich people, we have a lot of poor people, and we have a lot of middle class people. So this picture just denotes that the very poor and the very rich exist in the same cities. And clearly India is an integration of a lot of paradoxical ideas. And they all coexist. And I think the word for India is coexistence. We still have the old rituals. So when anybody buys a car, or anybody buys a new house, or anything of a significant value, you break a coconut for good luck, and then you chant some mantras, and it still exists. It is everybody who will buy a car will do it, or everybody who will buy a house will still do it. So the modern and the old gets married, and everything will coexist. And you'll find a mall and a supermarket, and right behind it, not even 10 meters or 20 meters sometimes, the wet market. So again, the old and the new coexist. I'll just take you to some numbers. I'm not sure, maybe over the last one and a half days, someone must have gone through it. So we're growing by, over the last 10 years, we're growing by 8%, but that was not always the case. In the first 50 years of the century, we were only growing by 1%. Between 1950 and 80, that is when we got our independence in 1947, we were growing by 3.5%, what famously came to be known as the Hindu rate of growth. And it got stuck for a very long time. And in 1980s, the growth started. And the real growth started in 1991 after the liberalization, when the current Prime Minister opened up the economy. And as I mentioned today, we're at 6%, which is a concern for Indians because that's like coming down from the highs of 8-9%. But I think from a global point of view, it still would be pretty good. Our population going by 1.5%. We have a large population. We have a lot of people, 200 million. Education is a big thing. So 80% of the population is literate. The middle class, the consuming class, which is the reason why corporate India blossoms, is growing very fast in India. 368 million people, that would be more than the population of 90-95% of the countries in the world. Of course, we have a lot of poverty, but it's on the decline. A lot of productivity gains are being seen recently. So industrialization in the farm, even though in the farming it's really less, a lot needs to be done even today. But thanks to the Industrial Revolution, productivity is on the rise. And out of the 8-9% growth India has seen, 3-4% would clearly be because of more efficiencies. Per capita is doubling every 10 years roughly. And though the growths have come down, still would be one of the fastest growing economies in the world. In fact, last quarter, for a change, it even grew faster than China. Now this is important. Every 5 years, the disposable income doubles of Indians. So the money in their hands to spend for buying is going up every 5 years. Now, from a retailer point of view, this is a very key indice. And when people go from the basic sustenance level, when they can eat food, you know, then they start spending on other categories like transportation, mobile, communication, watching movies, eating out. So globally, that's the way it goes. Your spends on food are the highest, but as you do better and better in life, the percentage spends on food goes down because you start buying into other categories. But the absolute amount of money on even food still goes high. But you'll find classically Indians spending a lot more on non-food now. And that's the way every country goes. Uh, Indians are still very confident. When this year Nielsen survey of all the countries in the world, when asked how confident are you about your future, uh, India is ranked number 2. It used to be number 1 for the last 3 years. It's come down to number 2. Indonesia is number 1. But still Indians are very confident that tomorrow is going to be better than yesterday. That's what the survey in a nutshell means, that the future is bright. With all projections from, depending on which consultant or industry body you believe, by and large by 2030, India should be a developed country. Standards of living at par with the West, largest number of educated people, 68 cities would be more than 1 million population. And the size of middle class would be huge, 12 times than what it is. Now coming to our industry, on what will happen to modern trade. Modern trade is like a baby in India. The supermarket business is like a baby. It's only started, the story only started in, let's say, 2000. So it's just like 10 years old industry. And in the last 5-6 years, in fact, it became, the activity increased. But even today, if you see, only 5 to 7% of the business goes through modern trade. So by and large, the trade is unorganized. And we believe India is growing by, even if it grows at 6, 7, 8%, the pie is so large that everybody can grow, including the smaller stores, the large stores, the supermarket, because the pie itself is growing every year. Even in the last 10 years, there's been never heard of any small store shutting down because of a large store coming up, because the country itself is growing. And we believe that for the next 10 to 20 years, it's going to be a very attractive market. Even though we are a very large country, you will find that for the consumer product company sales, if you take FMCG or what we call CPG in the US, the Nestle's and the Coke and the Pepsi's, these kind of companies, 16 cities give 75% of the business. So it is pretty skewed right now. It is so skewed that the opportunity to go to the other cities is very large over the next couple of years. Infrastructure is a challenge in India. As infrastructure grows, other cities will start growing at a faster rate. And I think 4 key things which are slowly falling in place, which could mean a lot of growth for the modern trade business in India. We've just had an FDI announced in retail. Not that much investments have come in, but there's been some kind of a policy announcement. I just mentioned that the modern trade penetration is very, very low, very low. The consumers are changing a lot. Every 5-6 years, you'll find consumers upgrading, changing their brands. It's happening everybody changes a mobile every year. I'm sure that happens worldwide. But in India, every 3 to 4 years, people are changing their car. So the speed is very rapid. I think the challenges of the marketeer and the companies to understand. And the disposal lingo I mentioned, every 5 years, it's doubling. So I think all these will lead to the growth of modern trade in the next couple of years. Just some numbers, organized retail could account for 30% of the 1 trillion retail sales by 2020. It could contribute to 3 to 4% of India's GDP. It would be larger than the whole FMCG industry currently in India and larger than India's IT industry. The IT industry is pretty large already. Do you want to come here? Rakesh? Sure. I request Mr. Rakesh Biyani to come and take on from here.
So, when we look at what's happened in India, is that it has taken us almost 60 years today to cross $1 trillion of an economic size. But the projections going by, it could be another 7 or another 10 years, and we could be adding another $1 trillion of economic consumption. And the real focus on modern trade, and particularly the retail business that we are operating, is about what share of that new consumption is what we are going to occupy. and that is where we have been focusing. And within the group, just to go back to the kind of challenges that we have in terms of the way the Indian consume, where they don't let things go away, the old remains. And we have been, over the last 10 years or so, in terms of driving consumption in India, been really working around these thought processes and working out on promotions, so like currently we have an exchange promotion going on, right? Which is a unique promotion which kind of offers you 5 times more value for an old product than what is otherwise available in the marketplace. It's a lucrative offer which kind of gets you to take out old stuff out of your home and give it back into the marketplace and consume new products. Now, otherwise in India, it will take forever, before people will start leaving old stuff. So we've been thinking, every time you go into the marketplace and say, what do you do? How do you get the customers to come and shop more? And that's where unique promotions like Exchange, which we run almost for 2 months every year, really plays a huge role. Just come back to the Future Group, that's our logo. In the past, India has been a marketplace. India was known as the land of the golden bird. 400 years of history of India, or maybe about 2,000 years of history of India, we've been invaded by I think almost everyone, from as far as Alexander, I think the beginning is there, to the Mughal era, the last one, to the British era, and the golden bird has just disappeared. In fact, I think David Cameron was there recently and talking about giving back the Kohinoor to us once again. I don't know if it will ever come back. But so what we believe is the fact that with this new young generation, which is going to drive the consumption in the country going forward, it's the time when the golden bird will come back to India. That's the kind of thought process that we are working on, and our entire approach to the business is about we need to do it in the Indian way. Because, as Devendra was saying earlier, in India, to be successful, you need to become Indianized, and Indianness is an integral part of every activity that we try to do within our business. Our own business today in 4 key consumption categories divided across the lifestyle segment and value segment, clothing or fashion as a business, food, home, and home. This is basically the soft and the hard goods side of the business. We've been into financial services business. We run an insurance business, and as part of our business to develop this business, we've had to invest into building the entire ecosystem around retail. So we've had to land up building our own supply chain company. We've had to land up building our own human development or future learning as a business, which is about really getting the sales force ready to be in the stores. And there's a lot of work that we need to do there. We are currently working along with the Government of India on the National Skills Development Program, where we are trying to train people on the electricians, the plumbing, etc. Because there's a huge shortage of skilled labor compared to the kind of consumption that is getting created. So these are the various companies that we have. 16.5 million square feet of retail space, close to 300 million odd footfalls every year in our stores. The key concept being Big Bazaar and Food Bazaar. And parallelly, while we are very focused on the urban side of the market, last 3 years or so, we've now partnered along with the Godrej Group and started our work in the rural side, which is where the concept like Aadhaar really comes in. And in 3 metro cities right now, we are working on a franchise model, which is on small footprint KB's fair price stores, Typical size of about just 800 to 1,000 square feet, selling limited SKUs. Pantaloons, which was the very first business that we really started off with in the modern retail, popularly basically called for fresh fashion, largely driven by private brands that we have created over the years. Central is our upmarket departmental store business with 24 odd stores today, but significant footprint size. Each store is about 100,000 odd square feet, and they're kind of destinations within each city that we'll end up opening them. And Big Bazaar, which kind of changed the face of India. It's like, when we, today's India's Naya Bazaar, or which is the India's new marketplace, started off initially with what we call the butt brush effect. There was chaos which is designed in the store, which is because in the existing marketplaces in India were always chaotic. There's always a fear, this is about 12 years back, and will the consumer who is so used to shopping in a chaotic marketplace come into an organized environment? Will he feel comfortable coming and shopping? Will he feel comfortable coming and shopping in an air-conditioned environment? And that was something which was difficult. There were in the 90s supermarkets which came up in Delhi, which tried to replicate exactly what the overseas supermarkets would offer, and they didn't work. So we said that where do we make a beginning? So we really didn't. What we wanted to do was create convenience, but at the same point of time ensure the fact that make it not that unfamiliar to the consumer. And so we didn't have straight aisles. We had kiosk which was pre-designed. Nothing went straight. But that was then. But as the consumer has moved forward, so has our stores moved forward. We have more modern stores today, more straight lines, bigger aisles, easier to shop, because that's what the customer is now ready for. So I think one of the things that we have been doing over the last 12 years or so is actually, teaching the consumer, the art of shopping. So that's another effort that one has to go through in a marketplace like India, which makes it even more challenging to run a retail business in India. We've done very well because, as per Nielsen data, close to 30% market share, and in some cities, close to 50% of the food market share is there. This is another business which we set up maybe a bit ahead of time. When the kind of experience that we had with Big Bazaar, we said we need to do the same thing in the home side of the business, and that's when Hometown was created. A Hometown was a concept which carried an assortment which otherwise you would have to, typically if you wanted to buy the same assortment, you have to go to at least 30 different stores to buy the same assortment. And we put it all together into one store. It's not been an easy task because India is clearly still not a DIY market. Everybody expects everything is going to get delivered to them. And coupled with the fact that real estate prices have been, last 6 years, we've seen close to 3x kind of price rise in terms of real estate. This is a business continues to struggle. Also, the challenge is also about, we cannot get enough professional skilled labor to be able to execute projects. And that's why last couple of years or so, we've started working along with the government in terms of building a skilled workforce, which will allow us to execute these home projects that we do. We've been successful in some of the categories where consumers want a fast solution. So on an average, currently we're executing about 6,000 kitchens every single month in the 5 cities that we are operating Hometowns in. Online is another business, very small compared to the rest of the world, but we do have a presence there. And we also have presence in some of the select niche categories, sports, another category where it's still a slow business. India is not athletic enough. We just not enough sporting activities happening. But we did land up building, and I did talk about the Aadhaar and fair price. Over the last few years, we also created global partnerships, and be it with Staples, Clarks, Skechers, and then we have licensing relationship with some of the leading brands out of the US and Europe. The learning business, supply chain, again, I think the only real logistics company in the country dedicated to the retail business. We run warehousing, I would say, equivalent to a global standard today in the US. It's just been, we don't use as much technology because the labor is still available at a reasonable cost. But in terms of the entire networking, the way the systems work within the warehouse, it's now come to the level in line with what a US standard would be there. And a lot of it has been done considering the fact that the country is due to go through a huge amount of taxation changes where the division of states, etc., is going to get collapsed, and with the GST regime likely to come in, India would become one marketplace which allows us to really create mega distribution centers and yet reach out to states without any loss due to taxation. And the partner that we have for the future supply chain business is Li and Fung, global leaders in supply chain management. $35,000 employees with a turnover of about $3.2 billion. 300 odd million consumers currently walking in. Big Bazaar. Is you want to share something on the Wednesday Bazaar?
So, typical in the world, weekend means a lot of shopping for us, and the Saturday Sunday was getting very skewed. And when you have costs which are more or less equal every single day, and people coming to the stores and the electricity bills, then we thought, why don't we create another occasion whereby we could create another shopping occasion. And then Wednesday for us has very successfully become a very big day of shopping. And for a grocery side of the business, actually Wednesday is sometimes bigger than even a Saturday or as big as a Sunday. This is again like something which may not happen in many parts or in many countries. We were ourselves not sure, but we could create that. In India, people still wait for the salary to come because a lot of people live on monthly salary. So the first of the month, when you get the salary in your bank, people go and buy for the month, most of them. So in India, the shopping is again very skewed in the beginning of the month. So between the 1st and the 7th or the 8th is when major grocery shopping will happen. So again, to capture that, we have various properties. These are various marketing properties, very successful, which we have created, where 30-40% of the business would happen in the first 7-8 days of the month. Again, this is something which actually created a retail revolution in the country. And 5-6 years back, on 15th August and 26th January, which is the Republic Day and the Independence Day, the company thought, and in fact it was an idea which was like taking a chance, saying that can we create a day, one day of shopping which can be huge for the whole country. And you have to believe it that on that day on most of the stores, there was so much crowd that the queues went for 1.5 kilometers as a line to get into the store. And on the first day when we started this, most of the stores got shut. There was so much crowd we could not manage. 18 stores got damaged. The police had to be called in. It was chaos. because the prices were so superb, and that actually has become one of the biggest shopping days in the country. Today, on that day, this January which has gone by, I mean, our company would have done 100 to 150 million dollars worth of sale, but now all other retailers have jumped in, and the sales could be roughly like 300, 400 million dollars for everybody put together.
Maybe more. In a country where typical behavior was the fact that it's going to be Diwali, which is the festive period, and that's when only people used to go and shop. 26th Jan or 15th August were days when stores used to be closed in India. They're supposed to be a holiday, and again, it's about when do you make the consumers come out and shop? You need to create reasons for them. Consumers are more than happy in our country, in India, to just stay back at home. And that's where the roles of events like Sabse Saste Din, and today it is by far the biggest shopping day in India. It's, I think, similar to the Black Friday event that happens in the US. But it's something which is, again, a lot of hard work, a lot of investment that has gone in. We as a group have taken the first steps towards almost all these activities. Even the Wednesday Bazaar, in a country where you could, in some marketplaces, almost 60% of our sales comes out only on Saturday and Sunday. It's like, the rest of the 5 days of the week, you continue to operate the stores with the same amount of people, everything. And we needed to create another reason as to what do we convince consumers that how do they come back to us and shop with us in the middle of the week. And that's where the Wednesday Bazaar property had to be created. And I believe now at least about another 4 retailers celebrate Wednesday as different kind of events.
That's the cue you could explain. So that the picture above on the right, if you see, this is like not even a month back. This is the queue outside the store just to get into the store. I mean, people would even today wait for 2.5, 3 hours just to get into the store. Exchange. You just mentioned Indians just don't throw away anything. Whatever comes in just comes in. Nothing goes out. Yeah. So a T-shirt will become a rag, and a rag will become something else, but it won't go out. So this, we gave a reason that you come back whatever old goods you have, whether it is a newspaper, an old bottle, or your old jeans, or whatever it may be, old television, old utensils, old tires, old shoes, whatever you have, if you bring to our store, we accumulate it, collect it in mass, and we'll give you coupons, and that will be roughly like a 20% discount on whatever you want to buy from the store. So that became a very big reason, and today a lot of our sales are driven, and people in fact come to the store and ask, when are you starting your exchange scheme? So again, this is something which is very unique, and we are the only retailer who still does it.
We also have trucks which go to people's homes, so that if they are feeling lazy, that they don't want to come in, so we take the truck to their homes and weigh the goods and give them the vouchers.
I'll take this.
Yeah.
I just mentioned when I started that in India, community, we live in communities. So while we are one country, we are actually like many countries. We have many major languages. While English and Hindi are common, not everybody knows that language. So it's not uncommon that the South India speaks a different language than North India and then a West India. So even today, if I travel to a state called Tamil Nadu, even I have a hard time talking because I don't know their language, they don't know mine. And so I feel as I'm in a foreign country as much as if in my own country. That's because we have many religions and many communities. And that's where the beauty is. It gets very complex because everybody's food is different, their language is different, their religion is different, and everything is different, and still everybody coexist and very happily coexist. So this is just to show that, the state of Maharashtra, where Mumbai is the financial capital, that the food people eat is very different from, in fact, food in India changes every 200 kilometers. Every 200 kilometers, the food changes or the taste changes. What we have popular called dal or lentils or pulses, the way it is cooked or the taste is different with every community. So of course, because we have a lot of communities and they have their own festivals, activating festivals is a very big thing for us in retail. Indians do a lot of fast, which is fasting, like they abstain from eating on certain days. So as a retailer, again, we've said that even if you don't want to eat, we have a section called Upvas, because you, in India, on a day when you're fasting, you can only eat certain things, or even when you break the fast, you break the fast in the evening with certain food which you can eat. And we are the first retailer to create a section within our stores. Consumers are appreciating it a lot because there's not a single store where everyone can go for their fasting needs. And Indians fast a lot. I mean, 70% of Indians fast at some point of time or the other. Amongst one of our formats is Brand Factory, where you will find all the international brands available. This is basically like a discount store. These are a couple of stores just in pictures. I'll just skip through this part. Central, Rakesh Biyani mentioned about the central stores, upmarket departmental store. These are large stores. Some of them even go to 400,000 square feet. Most of them would be above 100,000 square feet. Hometown, you mentioned this, doing 6,000 kitchens right now. See, we have a company called Future Brands, and as a retailer, we have ventured into our own brands. And we don't call them private label because most of them are not known as the name of the retailer. So most consumers won't even know that the brand is owned by the retailers, and thus we call them the brands. See, India is very under-branded, and you have to understand that despite that we have 1,200 million people, we are very under-branded. In 1991, we had only 2-3 cars, a Maruti and an Ambassador and a Fiat. In the 1980s, we just had 2-3 models of car. Today, there are some 580 to 600 models of car. Every year, 80-90 new car models are getting launched in India. And the consumers are loving it. They want even more. But let me surprise you. We have only 3 or 4 brands of jam in the country. We have only 3 brands of ketchup in the country. We have only 2 brands of cornflakes in the country. And we have 1,200 million people. So the point I'm making is that we are very under-branded. There are very few brands in most categories. Even if you take a detergent, there would be 10 to 12 brands. Soap is one category where you'll have many brands, maybe more than 100. So it's very heavily penetrated. But most categories are very under-penetrated. So as a retailer, we have a choice. Either we wait for all the companies to come into India, or we got to make our own brands and fill the store and give a choice to the customer. So we have our own company called Future Brands, and we have a lot of brand creation and IPR. In apparel, you'll see that 70-80% of the business is through our own brands. We have very successful brands. Some of them are even more than in rupees 100 crores or $25-30 million each. This is just a couple of brands which we have. These are all our own brands. So we have a full team developing own brands for the system. And while we can't go into each brand, and the session is not for that, I'll just give you an example of one brand or 2 brands, how we develop. I just mentioned about the community, so I'll just take a typical example of a city like Mumbai. This building could be actually anywhere in the world or in India or in Mumbai. And this is, so you'll find many communities, people are moving a lot within India for job, for business, somebody gets married into another city. So you'll find a Bengali and a Punjabi and a Gujarati all living in one cooperating housing society, or what we call a building in Mumbai. So you'll find different communities living in the same building, and I count that wherever I stay. In my building, there were 54 flats, and there were 4 Muslims and 3 Gujaratis and 5 Punjabis, and so they were 10 to 12 different communities. Now, everything seems common about people living in the building on the face of it. So, typical of a building, if there is a 5-6 kilometers radius, everybody would visit the same mall. Everybody go to the same multiplex to see the movies. And if there are 2-3 good schools, everybody's children would be going to the same schools. So it's often you'll meet up your neighbor in a mall sometimes or in a movie hall. And even in the evening, like 6 o'clock, all the children of the building will go down to play with each other. So it all looks very similar. But that's about it. When it comes to the dining table, no 2 food will ever match. Everybody's food is different. The Maharashtrians eat different food, the Punjabis in North India eat a different food than the South Indian. So everybody have their own different food, cooked in a different way, different spices, different ingredients, and that's where the beauty is. And with Indians moving a lot within India, a lot of times you'll find people not getting their native food in a new city where they have moved. Because it's like as good as you moved within a country. Coming from Punjab, going to Tamil Nadu in South, is actually going to a new country. It's not like everybody, you don't know the language, you don't know the customs, the festivals are different. So we realized that the consumers, there was a big gap with so many millions of people moving, they're not getting their native food and they were eating something else which they weren't very happy about. So we developed a brand called Ekta. Ekta is a Hindi word which actually means like unity. So unity in diversity. And through this we brand all the authentic native foods of every community within one brand. And this has been I mean, just to give you some numbers, this is just 2.5 years old brand, and today only in our stores, only in our 240 grocery stores, we do something like 15 to 20 million US dollars sales. We celebrated completely with the community cues, the regional cues. Again, I'll give you one classical example. You'll find that soup was an alien concept and it came from the West. And even today in India, only 4 to 5% of the people drink soup. Most of the Indians don't drink soup, even today. And largely, by and large, the promotion of soup has been via a bowl, as it is. That, you got to consume a soup in a bowl. But many Indians can't afford a bowl. And many Indians, we were surprised. We did a research in our stores, and it only took us 1 hour. We spoke to some 30 housewives, and we realized that a lot of Indians inside the comfort of their home while watching a television or a sitcom or a match, sports, they have soup in a mug. 80% of Indians have soup in a mug inside their homes. But then when they go out in a hotel or in a restaurant or in a 5-star, there's social, they want to look good, so they'll have it in a bowl. But they're not very at home, it's not very comfortable. So we realized that how come nobody's using this inside? Because either you try to change the consumer's habit by saying, no, what you're having is not right, you must consume this way, or you join them by saying, listen, I'm fine how you drink the soup, because I'm in the business of selling soup. I'm not in the business of selling bowls. Well, we also sell bowls in our store. But from a food point of view, so we launched a campaign. We said, let's try this. And we just did a quick thing in a month. We got these mugs, which you see in the picture. We got 1 lakh of them. And we said, and we launched our own brand of soup, this brand called Tasty Treat. It sells in our stores even now. And we said that you buy a soup and get a mug free. And we sold in 3 days, the 1 lakh mugs got sold out. And we were surprised. So we got 1 million mugs the next month and they got sold out. And we realized that 50% more consumers started consuming soup who were visiting our stores. That's a classical example of how to develop a category. Something which would have taken years and years or decades could happen in 2-3 months. Because what you're telling them is, I'm fine, you legitimize the habit. I mean, these are just 2-3 examples which I've taken. Holly, I think we won't have time left for the Q&A. So
I think we're going to run into the so we won't do a very long break this time. So you have just a few more minutes. It's okay.
So I mean, on the formal part, then
Yeah.
they're done. Then we can have the Q&A for say.
Okay. Okay. Good. So, any questions? Yeah. Do you want to come up to the microphone, please?
DC?
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Ladies first.
Okay. I actually have two. The first one is a lot has been said about our demographic divide and how much growth we can have, but over the last 2 to 3 years, it's getting harder to sell the India story. It's not that easy to go out and say, yeah, India's doing great. A lot is partly due to the political nature of our Indian politics. With the elections coming up, what do you think is going to happen over the next decade, or at least over the next 5 to 6 years? Where do you think India's growth story is going to go? And the other one is, as an entrepreneur, what are the biggest challenges that you've faced other than infrastructure and corruption, and what are the biggest lessons that you've learned?
So, I think on the election side, I don't think so. The next election will also get a solution to India's problem. The way the national structure is and the way the political party and the systems run today, the probability that we are going to get an one-party government in the center is not high at all. So the coalition governments are here to stay. But I think what is happening in India, and which is why the growth continues to be at the 6% level, it's not about what the center in Delhi does, it's about what the states are doing. And clearly in many states in India today, there are strong leaderships which are working very well. So be it Gujarat, be it Bihar, be it Madhya Pradesh, or be it Tamil Nadu today. So many states are working very well. And I think each state itself is a large consumption place. So as long as the state leadership continues to become stronger and stronger, Delhi definitely controls many things, right? But I would say the fact that ultimately what is happening in India is that anybody who's getting voted back to power are the ones which are delivering economic change, and that's what the consumer really wants. And without an economic change happening, peer parties are not going to get voted into power. So the current government did go through a crisis, but is trying to do its best. But there are going to be limitations. In any country where there is going to be a coalition, these challenges are going to continue to be there, and so will they continue in India, for sure. In terms of other than corruption and infrastructure, I would say the biggest challenge that we face is resources in terms of human resources, and it's the skilled people that is available, and that is something that we need to tackle. And it's about the quality of education that people go through, and the willingness to and it's at different levels, so it's going back to, like if I have to build a home business, I need professionalism in the plumbing business, in the electrician business. So these are areas that need to be addressed. Work is happening, government is also recognizing the same, but these are going to get solved over a period of time. There's no one solution which will come in straight away.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. I organized a supply chain conference here, and from that point of view, I had met with your colleagues and Future Supply Group. The question is, what do you think when Government of India is going to introduce GST, and why it is taking so much time to make that decision?
I think, we're all keeping our fingers crossed that on 28th of Feb, when the union budget will get presented, a firm roadmap to GST would be announced. GST is a huge reform, and it's in the merit of everybody in the country. But I think, every state wants to have some powers, and where will we find a balance? If you look into what's happened over the last 2 or 3 months, I think there has been positive movements and positive feedback which has come in from the Empowered Committee. So my gut feel is the fact that if either we will get GST in October this year, or it will happen in post the national elections. GST is basically a goods and service tax. It's a replacement. Today there are 3 levels of 3 different taxes in India. 2 which are collected by the center, 1 which is on the goods, which is on manufacturing, and then 1 which is collected on services. In India, by law, only the central government is allowed to collect tax on manufacturing and on services, and the state government only collects VAT, which is on the sales within their own state. GST is going to merge the 3 taxes together into one tax, which allows vatability and reduces the incidence of tax on tax. So today the average tax rate in India, when you look at the tax on tax, the average tax rate in India is about 22%. With the GST, it's proposed to come down to about anything between 16 to 18%. But because of the fact that the tax on tax will disappear, it is more in line with the value-added tax system, which is being, which is used largely in countries like Europe. It's a huge reform in terms of making it convenient. It allows free movement of goods from one state to the other, which is not possible today without a loss in tax. I think the biggest reform is that India becomes one marketplace rather than being divided into 30 different states today. And so many low margin categories, so what does happen is the fact that, because you can't afford to pay a dual or a interstate tax, You make your supply chain very complicated, and you'll end up opening warehouses in every single state, which means your inventory is divided, which means you can't have a free movement of goods. So it's quite a complex structure. Plus there is paperwork, etc. So GST kind of addresses all of that to make it into this divided nation into one marketplace. That's what GST will do. So I think it's anybody's guess when GST will come in, but I'm quite hopeful that things are moving forward. It would be one of the single most important reforms carried out in India in a very, very long time. And my gut feel it can easily add another 2 percentage points to the GDP growth rate itself.
Great. One thing you can guess is the Futures Group presence in USA. When do we see Futures Group here?
I think we're more than happy staying in India. That's the place where the consumption is happening. The demographics continues to remain strong. Walmart is fighting extremely hard to come and enter there. I have no interest in coming to this country and doing something.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Biyani. Thank you so much for such a great presentation. My question has to do something with the first question that was asked. There are a lot of unfavorable conditions for a business to grow in India. But my question has to do with the perception of the people. Like, there is no sense or spirit of entrepreneurship among the Indian business people. Many of my friends go to the top business schools in India, like the IIMs, and nobody really talks about starting a new venture because of the risk associated with it, and they all want to work for like a lot of foreign companies. Do you is there a way to change this perception? Maybe offer some incentives, change the whole environment?
I don't know which India you're talking about, because the India that I come from is the land of entrepreneurs.
Well, he's a Marwadi, so they're all only business people.
Yes. Sir wants to share something, Sir.
I think quite a good number of people now they don't want to accept any of these positions, and they're trying for their own business. I am Rakesh. And I remember even from my own batch, it's a long time back, but people have started their own business. I graduated from the first batch of I am on Bazaar. We are 48. After 48, 3 people started their own business. Okay. I'm talking about way back 1966.
Yeah.
So today, I think the trend is much higher.
Oh, you think it's higher than last time? Because about 95% of the people they go for placements. They don't really how it should supposed to be. How is it?
See, I think what's happened is the fact that many people believe the fact that they would like to get some more experience, practical experience, before they go into a business on their own. But I find the fact that there are many people who just go even after they work and then understand where they want to focus, they go back and they are able to create a very successful business. And let's be, it's not that India is not a place which is or any part of the world. It's not so simple that you can just go and set up your own business. It's a difficult one. You need to be very clear about what you want to do. And so the opportunity is equal. Yes, definitely, if you can get your act together, get your thought process right, the opportunity in India is very, very good.
Thank you.
We have time for just one more question, please. Here.
Hi. So you mentioned that India was largely under-branded, and so this caused for your business model to include a lot of private brands on your end and creating your brands. But with increasing globalization, I can only imagine that international brands will start to penetrate the market, as well as more and more Indian brands. So what does this mean for your business model?
See, first of all, we're retailers, so whatever sells with us. So when more companies come, it's good for us. We would love that. In fact, we want them to come faster. Even in the US, you'll find with Walmart or Tesco, they have a very successful private label program. Mm-hmm. So even in the West, with all the brands available, private label is still big.
Right.
And retailers have their own interest in developing all their own brands. One, you could play with them to do your own things on consumption. Every brand may not agree to do something which you want to try out. With your own brands, you could tinker, do a lot and discover, because India is all about discovery. Every 5 years, consumers are changing. So who knows what is right? We don't know. Nobody knows. It's all about discovery. Second, private brands make more margin for us. Every retailer also has a business model. I mean, it makes more money for you, and it's extremely important that you have a part of the business which is very profitable. Uh, and as more brands come and as more retail develops, I think the margins are going to go up slowly. So probably I'm guessing at that point of time, the dependence on private brand for margin would be lesser, but to grow the market and have your own brands, they play a very strategic role for you. You could, position them the way you want to. And there are so many, India, there are so much gaps, like I told you. I mean, if in 40 years there are 2, 3 brands of ketchup and jam, I can't even guess when the next one will come. I have no idea. So when will they come? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? How many of them? Who will decide that this is enough? So till it is all figured out, it's very good to have a part of the business which you control.
Okay, thank you.
I want us to say thank you very much to the Future Group for coming and joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.